Community activist Shakem Ahket wants answers from the Charleston County School District after WCSC-TV reported that a former Charleston County School District employee had child pornography on his laptop. In this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I sit down with Shakem one-on-one. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. And of course, you can listen to this interview later on iHeartRadio. Shakem Ahket.
What's up, my brother?
It's so good to see you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, indeed. And as you always say,
all power to the people.
well, you talk about the people. Let me take you to something very serious here.
Okay.
You released a press release on yesterday. You said this: Charleston activists called for FBI-led and South Carolina legislative investigation into Charleston County School District child molestation scandal. Let me read a portion of this particular press release, that is.
Okay.
It reads this: local activists and community leaders are calling a press conference to call for an immediate investigation into the negligence and mishandling of evidence by the Charleston County School District officials in regard to the alleged sexual misconduct and child molestation by now deceased and former Charleston County School District employee Marvin Givers. Why now?
Right. Unfortunately, this issue has been covered up. And whether or not, because there's a lot of talk about, who was there at the time, who wasn't at the time. At this particular juncture, it doesn't matter who's there. When we send our children to school, we hope and we pray that nothing goes awry. Whenever we put our faith into the school system while we're at work, we're at home or wherever we may be, when we put our faith and our trust in the school system, we want to make sure that there's nothing going wrong or there's no sort of imminent danger that can come their way while they're outside of our jurisdiction, our love, and our care. What we just witnessed was one of the most egregious breaches of trust that you could ever imagine. As a parent, you would have to imagine the immense pain and suffering and mental anguish that you would go through when your child comes home and says, "Mommy, somebody has been touching me. Daddy, somebody has been touching me." Imagine the pain and the rage that would be built up inside someone from hearing those words uttered from the mouth of a child. Where we began as a community to start, and shout out to Carter Coyle, she from Live 5 News, she dug in,
Right.
she dug deep,
Right.
she got a lot of information, she sent a lot of requests, she was very diligent in her research. She faced some opposition that we believe should never have been faced, because when trying to get this sensitive type of information, understanding the severity of it, it should be given willingly, especially if we care about the children. So what we wanted to do as activists and community members, we want to find out, A, who was involved. It doesn't matter if they're current employees or they're not. We don't care, because just because you're not working at CCSD anymore does not mean that lessens your culpability. You still are culpable, whether it's criminally or whatever. We want you in jail. If it was found out that, somebody purposely, with ill intent or any sort of intent, deceive or sought to deceive the average person from, knowing what was going on, we want that person in jail. We want people questioned under oath, because oath is going to hopefully bring integrity to the investigation. Any investigation must have the utmost of integrity, because if there is no, I would say, threat of perjury in the air whenever someone's testifying or given a deposition, they can say anything without having any sort of consequence. So the investigation that happens needs to have some sort of oath or threat of perjury. We want the FBI to investigate. We also want the South Carolina legislature to investigate. We have some very outstanding men and women who are a part of the South Carolina legislature. We want them to act immediately. We want the meetings, we want the hearings also to be public. We don't want, them to meet behind closed doors and then come back with some finding that we could deem to be erroneous, and then they don't ever tell us how they came to that conclusion. They just come with a piece of paper saying, this is our findings. We don't want that. In any way, shape, or form, if they feel like that's something that they are gonna do, then we will push back in any way, shape, or form on that. We want hearings to be public. We want to be able to listen to the process so the public can judge the integrity. This is a public issue. It needs to be done publicly. We want SLED involved also. Kevin Hollenshed, we've spoken to him and other board members. They are all for some sort of external investigation being done, on the issue. We want any sort of investigation that is done. We want it. We want, a full-fledged, blown investigation. And we won't stop until we get it. There are some things, reading the information, that had me very, that raised my ire, my anger. Mr. Gathers was HIV positive. So when you look at the whole situation, you had an employee who was caught with child pornography. Now keep in mind, they knew it was child pornography. In the statement by Detective Benton, they specifically stated that the IT guy, he turned it over to the police, and when he turned it over, he said it potentially contained child pornography. If it was just adult pornography, all they could have did was fire him, because technically adult pornography is legal. This is not illegal. So the only thing that would put the police or law enforcement involved would be if it contains something illegal like child pornography. So they knew since day one that it was child pornography involved. And when you just kind of look at the timeline and how it all plays out, you begin to see how, it took, 37 days for them to turn it over to law enforcement. So what was going on in that 37 days? Then from my understanding, I believe I don't have the information in front of me, but it also took a whole, his investigation lasted a week. Then, 10 months later, this guy is given a raise. He was promoted to a student concern specialist. So what happened is now he went through the process of being caught with child pornography, went under investigation. Then he was placed in a position to where he had access to the most vulnerable children who are mentally debilitated, children who are in broken households and broken families, children who are pleading and crying for help. A student concern specialist is supposed to be one who nurtures and develops and coaches and understands an environment that the children are in, and they, give them some sort of inspiration. However, he was placed in that fiduciary role, and all it did was serve his nasty and filthy mind to molest 2 more children while he was under investigation for child pornography. Somebody has to be held accountable for this.
You talk about accountability. Have you been able to hear from the Charleston County School District or the Charleston County School Board members besides Hollenshed and those folks?
Not really in a way, but I haven't really sat down and had an extensive conversation. I have spoken to several members of the school board, and everybody says that they didn't know what was going on. So, nobody has said, nobody to this day has said, you know what, I dropped the ball. We should have done this or we should have done that. So there's several people of interest that need to be questioned by the feds. Definitely, Ms. McGinley needs to be questioned under oath by the feds, because she was the superintendent at the time. And there is no way, you cannot convince me that the head of the district had no visibility of what was going on at the time. She needs to be questioned under oath by the Fed. Dr. Wimbush, he needs to be questioned under oath by the feds. In his particular situation, when the police actually got Mr. Gather's laptop, the letter that he wrote, it was actually directed to whom it may concern. However, it did say that it was directed also to Dr. Wimbush. So we know that Dr. Wimbush didn't just take this letter and tuck it in his, pocket and just leave it there. The individuals had to know. We need to know who knew, and then when we find out who knew, we need to find out why was he put in this fiduciary role to work with children in a more, with children who are more vulnerable. So these people need to come and be questioned under oath. Any board members who were there at that time, they need to be questioned. This will also help them exonerate themselves, because in the public eye, a lot of people, and I've talked to several of them.
Okay.
The public believes, a lot of the public believes that they knew. They believe that everybody's just saying, "Hey, I didn't know." So in hopes to exonerate themselves, if they did answer questions while under oath, it would actually build the trust in their statement and to the people, so the people can say, "You know what? This person didn't really know."
And let me go back to the press release. It reads this: Mr. Marvin Gabbers was found to have allegedly accessed sexually inappropriate web data on the Charleston County School District issued laptop during a routine virus check. Do they know how many times did they check that particular laptop?
Well, I don't know, but from the information that I've read, Mr. Gathers complained that his laptop wasn't working. And when he complained that his laptop wasn't working, he brought it in and asked for them to fix it. So of course, if your laptop isn't, working at any job, your laptop's not working, they do a virus scan because you might have probably downloaded a virus. So when the IT guy started looking at the going through the virus scan, he started looking at all these pornography websites, and one of the websites was like 101 Boys 101 or something crazy like that. The title just gave off a clear indication that it was child pornography. So that was one of the things that he stated in his statement that really triggered him into saying, "Whoa, something is wrong." And so they did access plenty other websites up in the number of 40 or upwards that actually contain images of children in a pornographic manner. So with that being said, what incites the fury of a lot of people is, you have imagine the type of recklessness that one must have within themselves to access child pornography on a district issued laptop. This isn't your own laptop. Imagine this person has to be reckless. And just nobody, you would think nobody in their right mind would use their work laptop to access pornography. So that just shows you the level of intelligence that he really possessed. He couldn't have been too smart of an individual. And then another thing that I thought about is most normal jobs have an evaluation period. They evaluate you based on your performance, how well you interacted with coworkers, how well you interacted with, people in general, whatever it is, there's an evaluation-based review at a certain term period. How can this guy, after 10 months, with him just being caught with child pornography on his computer, they knew it was child porn, so they can't say, "Oh, we didn't know it was child porn." You knew. That's why he turned it into the police. How is it that a person can be evaluated over a certain span of time for their work performance and still get a raise after you got caught with child pornography? Now we have to, it was just an epic disaster.
I know you don't work for the Charleston County School District, but do you know what's the process as far as an employee that they're supposed to use this particular laptop or desktop?
Well, I don't actually know that, the standard operating procedure on, who's supposed to use what as far as the laptop. But what I do know, when we looked at some of the, I wish I would have pulled it out if I knew he was going to ask me that question. But we did kind of look into the district handbook,
Right.
And there we were able to outline 5 different reasons why Mr. Gathers should have been terminated after being caught with child pornography. So it wasn't like they couldn't fire him. It's not like they couldn't suspend him. They could have done it legally, but they chose to overlook it and allow him to go back in.
What type of particular employee was him, from what you're understanding?
He was a scumbag, in my opinion. But I don't know him as a person. A lot of people liked him.
Okay.
You know, from what a lot of people have said, he was a very likable person. He was very cordial, very humble, very approachable. He did have a demeanor that a lot of people, I would say, warmed up to him. I heard he was very well spoken. So all of the characteristics of, you know, a good person on the outside he was just suffering from a mental illness that attracted him sexually to images of children being abused, molested, and raped. So, you know, that deep inner, you know, psychological problem just sat within him and just was in his mind. And you just really, from the outside, his outside construct, you really couldn't tell, but he was facing a demon within.
Did they ever go back and talk to the IT person that actually found this alleged child porn on this desk, on this laptop?
Yes, he has a statement.
Okay.
He has a statement. Yes, he does. And it sounds like he did what he was supposed to do. I don't see any negligence on his behalf. It looks like he reported it. He looks like he reported it at the right time. So I didn't really see any negligence on his behalf.
Going forth, you said that you want to talk with the South County legislator. I know you want to get Wendell Gilliard involved.
I want Wendell Gilliard, good brother. We know he has integrity. We know he's going to do what's right. Marvin Pendarvis, integrity. We know he's going to do what's right. Fighter for the community. Senator Kempson, very strong individual, intelligent. We know he's going to do what's right for the community. David Mack, a soldier for a long time in the field. We know he would do what's right, a man of integrity, a stand-up guy. I would love for these four individuals, if any sort of investigation was done in the South Carolina legislature, I would love for them to either oversee or to actually be involved if possible. I know a lot of them have outside things to do, but those four gentlemen, any one of them at any given time, they need to be involved in the process to ensure integrity.
And let me get back. Obviously, now that you want this investigation launched, has there been any internal investigation with the school district in your mind?
I don't think so. And the only reason being is the initial response is, nobody's here right now. Nobody who managed the situation is not here. We don't know what's going on. And, it's not us. That even if that's the case, you still haven't addressed the structural flaws or the policy that hasn't been changed that will allow someone to continue to slip through the cracks in the event that this happened. So we're not looking at just a small, microscopic view of the situation saying, okay, these people aren't here. What if the policy is still the same that will allow this type of behavior moving forward? So we don't want to just focalize on the tunnel view aspect of it. We want to look at it from a broad-based policy standpoint and say, hey, what changes can be made in the implementation of policy, the disciplinary policy, in the event this happens again? We haven't heard anybody talk about it from a policy standpoint. So that leads me to believe that there has not been any sort of internal investigation done, because we're not even addressing the big picture. We just say, hey, nobody's here, that's good. Nobody said, okay, nobody's still here. Nevertheless, we will look at the policy and make sure that this doesn't happen moving forward. That hasn't been said yet.
How do you look at the Charleston County School District now these days?
It's in turmoil. It's nothing new because I've been in Charleston all my life, so it's not like I've been in Charleston all my life, raised, been in it forever. So the school district has always been in disarray. ever since I've been young. So I think, while there has been gains, we have made gains in certain areas. Overall, looking at the big picture, we still continue to move backwards, dealing with things outside of this issue, test scores, looking at different services, wraparound services that students get in certain particular areas. Staff always has, teachers and administrators always have questions about, their voices being heard and actually something being done as far as being solution oriented. So you have this give or take. It's just with anything. You have some people who praise the district and say, hey, they're doing better. Then you have some people who say, well, not so much. And then you have the people in the middle who can understand both sides.
Where is the public on this issue?
And outraged. Every time, I talk about this issue on social media or in person, people are just bewildered at what has happened. People want to know, how in the world could something like this have happened? Like I said, just to reiterate, whenever we send our children to school, we hope and pray that things like this don't happen. And when it does happen, we need to find out how can we make sure this does not happen. We don't just want to say, we don't want to just say, okay, it's not going to happen. We need something put in place in policy that says any employee that has been caught with pornography, whether it be child pornography or, adult pornography, will be immediately terminated. We don't need language that allows for error or has some sort of nuances. We don't need anything that's ambiguous. We need it firm. We need it there in black and white, letting it be known that this is zero tolerance. That has not been done yet.
That brings me to my next question. Why the politics when something this criminal is happening?
Ooh. Well, I guess they say everything is politics. It's sad, but I don't know. When it comes down to, I guess everybody's in a state right now where, since this has been, highlighted, the level of egregiousness of the situation, nobody wants to be put, under the microscope for something like this happening. A guy with HIV working in a school gets caught with child porn, promoted, goes and molests two children. Nobody wants that blood on their hands. So immediately everybody's going to say, not it. Not it. To be honest, I would probably say that too. If I was on the board, I'd be like, man, I didn't have nothing to do with that. Y'all must be crazy. So human nature, I guess they say the first law of life is self-preservation. So everybody's in self-preservation mode at this point. And the people who have the knowledge, they're not being forced to talk. McGinley is not being forced to talk. So she's quiet because there's nothing forcing her to speak. Dr. Wimbush, nothing is forcing them to speak. It's almost like we almost need like a Mueller probe. You know what I'm saying? So once we can get them to start speaking under oath, then you will begin to see the ball to start rolling. Now you got to answer questions. So the politics is there because nobody really wants to take ownership, and I totally understand why. So that is why we have to put these committees together with transparency, integrity, and consequence. Those are the three things we want: transparency, integrity, and consequence. Once we have those three, and an investigation has those three elements contained in it, then we'll start getting results.
Shakem Ahket, thank you so much for your time, and I'm sorry about this. I don't know what's going on with these lights.
Hey.
Yeah. But thank you for your
Yes,
time.
sir, my brother. Yes, sir. Well, you the light. We don't need a light because this brother here is the light.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, brother.
I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. You take care.
Yeah, you too.